8 years ago today, parts of the Midlands were underwater after inches of rain fell in what would become a historical flooding event across South Carolina. Good evening and thank you so much for joining us for News 19 at 6. I'm Darcy Strickland.
And I'm Andrea Mock, and as today marks 8 years since the historic 2015 flood where more than 20 inches of rain inundated us here in the Midlands and led to things like rapids and cars being swept away on street corners.
The flood destroyed many homes and businesses and caused the Columbia Canal to breach. Today, News 19's Walker Lawson takes a look back at what happened then and the recovery that is still happening today.
We were flabbergasted. The force of water is remarkable.
Michael Marche, president of Forest Lake Fabric, remembers the 2015 flood like it was yesterday as water washed out his business.
And there was fabric all out in the woods across the street, and it was a wicked scene.
Marche says they lost $1 million in inventory. When it comes to the larger community, the flooding caused an embankment breach at the Columbia Canal, which threatened the drinking supply for thousands of Columbia residents. In 2015, people lined up for bottles of drinking water offered to those impacted. 8 years later, Assistant City Manager Clint Shealy says the city of Columbia is working on the Columbia Canal through 3 projects.
So the first project is replacing the head gates. So up at the entrance of the canal, the head gates during the flood became lodged with debris. So we were unable to close those gates to limit the flow coming into the canal. We were unable to do that with the technology and the type of gates that we had at that time.
That design is complete and in a few months will be out for bid. Then comes Project 2, the Embankment Recovery Project.
This project is scoped to repair that breach and also repair any damage along the toe of our embankment upstream.
Lastly will be to have an alternative water supply. Now the city of Columbia and residents in the surrounding communities and businesses like Forest Lake Fabric are moving forward and hoping nothing like the 2015 flood ever happens again.
To not only restore our water supply to as good as we were in October of 2015, but to make it better and more resilient than we were in 2015.
I'm Walker Lawson, News 19, WLTX.
The city of Columbia expects the projects on the canal to be complete by the end of 2026.
A total of 19 people lost their lives statewide during this rainstorm, with 9 of those fatalities happening here in Richland County alone. Meteorologist Jim Gandy and Daniel Bonds recently spoke about the historic flood.
For the first time, we actually had a pretty decent forecast of the amount of rain that was going to occur. We're looking at it. I'm telling corporate, look, if the model's only half right, it's still a historic rainfall. And we knew by Thursday that we were headed for a flood of some magnitude on Sunday.
A lot of times when we're covering things, it's somewhere else.
Yes,
but it was right here. Right here.
I know, and so it's going to stick in our minds forever because, you know, we're still recovering from that event.
Well, during the flood, the Congaree River in Columbia reached its highest levels since 1936.